Right, so the nurses have been on strike once more this week, and paramedics are on strike today. And once again, the media is full of nonsense about them destroying Christmas, wrecking the health service, and the Health Secretary Steve Barclay, a man about as useful to our NHS as a handbrake on a canoe, said this.
Who is responsible for any deaths that happened today?
Well, it is the trade unions that are taking this strike action at a point of maximum pressure for the NHS, and in doing so are not giving an undertaking to cover all life-threatening and emergency responses
the
at
Unison
a national
boss,
level. So
forgive me for interrupting, but we haven't got a lot of time. The Unison boss has said it is absolutely the government's fault if people die during today's strike.
So the unions are to blame for any deaths, not the government, according to this cardboard cutout of a politician. What an insult. Typical Tory, blaming someone else. But he also pointed specifically to paramedics and their frustrations. The ones on strike today, no less. So shall we hear from one of them? Here's that headline from the Telegraph mentioned in that piece of VT. It is absolutely shameless. You cannot trust the Tories with the NHS. It has been a mantra for years. It has been an election message aimed at them by opposition parties for years at various general elections, but it has never swung voters away in recent years, despite always being a key election issue. The exception, sadly, being the last one, where Brexit buried the subject, despite the trouble our health service was still in even then, and handed the Tories the majority they're now using to damage the service now and attack those working within it, seeing the first ambulance workers' strikes in 30 years, as Nick Ferrari of LBC, not somebody known for his aversion to the Tories in normal times, skewered Barclay over.
How is it that on your watch we have the first ambulance strike of this magnitude in 30 years? That's a day of shame for you and your government, isn't it?
Well, we're investing more, Nick, in the NHS. That's what we did at the autumn statement. It builds on the long-term plan. Well, we've got an independent process which the trade unions have chosen not to accept.
Secretary of State, the independent pay review body, you only get on it if you or a predecessor recommends you. The chair is appointed by the Prime Minister. When was the last time the Independent Pay Review Body actually recommended above inflation pay rise? When was the last time, Secretary of State?
Last year's 3% that was awarded to Agenda for Change was above inflation. So the award last year was above inflation, Nick,
but they're
to answer your question.
Now 3%, and we're at 10.4%. And are you aware of the background of some of the people who sit on the pay review board?
So firstly, I think it's a mischaracterisation in terms of the independence of people on the pay review bodies.
Again, Barclay hid behind these figures of investment in the NHS, but in real terms, because they never mention inflation when it isn't convenient, this investment has been in real terms cut. Not only that, but the Lansley reforms to the NHS when the Tories came back into power, so all the profitable bits that the NHS made money from itself sold off to private investors, privatising the bits that helped to fund the NHS in addition to public money, and so denying the service another revenue line, leaving it with the unprofitable bits and the debts, of course. Of course, the Tories would rather you think about all of this trade union action only in terms of pay and not in terms of the safety of the service. So that independent pay review body got a mention in the Ferrari-Barclay footage just now as well. But as you saw, Ferrari had none of that, since it is not independent. The government appoints people to it. The chair is selected by the Prime Minister, and they have never, ever recommended an above-inflation pay rise. They only make a pay recommendation once a year anyway, because on one hand, if that was the way these people are minded, they'd never get put on the panel by the Tories. And for another, the government actually sets their spending limits anyway, so they can only make recommendations on pay insofar as the government has given them room to. They're also only an advisory body. They have no power over government and can and do get ignored by them. This isn't the only such pay review body the government appoints under the pretense of independence either. So watch out if such things get mentioned in other areas as well. Ultimately, the government set NHS pay. So the part of this dispute that concerns pay is in the government's power to fix overnight. It is a political choice that they ignore it. So any deaths related to this aspect of strike action is definitely on them. The underfunding and understaffing that has made the service less safe and is far and away the main reason why the carers in this caring profession have taken to the streets, many for the first time in their lives, is because, again, the government funds this too. So any deaths arriving from this part of the story is also on them. The only reason health workers have taken this action is because they literally have no options left. It all needs to be reversed, but neither the Tories nor Starmer's Labour will do it, both funded by private health as they and certain individuals in both parties are these days. So the workers in the service know it is up to them, they and their unions, fighting for our interests, our health service, because frankly, they're the only ones left to do so. Quite honestly, I think MPs should be banned from using private health themselves, since if they were forced to use the same service as the rest of us, they'd soon damn well fix it. What gives me hope is that people are onto the government over this, with 2/3 of the public backing the strikes, according to various polls. Though it seems this is a hill the government is prepared to die on right now. They can fix this. And the fact they won't means, it seems to me, any deaths arising from this fixable situation should have the Tory government written as the cause of death on people's death certificates. I'll let this lady bodying Barclay have the last word. Solidarity to the ambulance workers today. Support your NHS. And please support these strikes.
That plan for jobs has protected.
Are you going to do
businesses.
anything about the ambulances waiting and the people dying out? Well, don't you think 12 years is long enough?
Yes, and we are
12 years, you've done bugger all about it.
No.
People have died and all you've done is nothing.